Hey everyone, TommyJ here and welcome to my new series, I Show You Games. This series is intended to give you a general impression of a game, so you can decide whether or not it is worth your time and or money, with some of my own opinions thrown in. Today I'm here to show you Infinity Wars, which is a free-to-play animated trading card game as the devs call it. It's made by Lightmare Studios, who in the past have released Omni, a third-person MOBA-style game, and are currently developing Robot Zombie Defense, a single-player defense game for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android, so they do have a bit of experience with game development. Before we begin, it's worth mentioning that this game is currently in open beta, so there may be some issues and you need to keep that in mind during the video. Okay, so the options for this game are very limited. Most of them are outside of the game in the launcher, where you have resolution, which is an extensive list as you'd expect, a tick box for windowed or full screen. There is unfortunately no full screen windowed mode, and there's also graphics quality, and there's one setting for that, and that is called good. So you can't change that at this moment in time, but it's not incredibly stressful on any system really, so that's probably alright for now, but I imagine in the future they will have more options available. In-game, there's two sliders, music and effects, and there is a rulebook available in the options menu, which is quite useful when you're trying to learn the game, though the campaign will probably cover most of it for you. Okay, so on to the game itself. In this game, there are animated cards, as you can see here. Some of them have very basic animations, it'll just be a swaying or a slow movement. Some of them a bit more, like this one. I think this one's got a decent amount of animation to it, and it looks really good. Honestly, the card art is great. It's amazing. And yeah, they just look great. They're really cool. Okay, so in Infinity Wars, there are 7 playable factions. And they are all very, very unique. And I love that about the game. It's not like other collectible card games where most races are the same. Like, for example, Hearthstone, most races, or most decks are quite similar. In this, they're all very unique, they have their own completely different playstyles, and yeah. Another interesting thing is that you can make hybrid decks. So you can just combine 2 different things. So let's say I want to go this deck Warpath with this deck Genesis Industries. We'll go new deck, save current deck, no. Deck name, 1, 2, 3, 4. And yeah, you can just create a deck. So there are limitations on the deck, and they're pretty basic. They follow most limitations that card games have. You can only have a certain number of each card in a deck, so you can only have 3 of each card in this deck. As you can see here, I can't add another Killaroo, as this card is called, but I can add 3 of these. Now, you need 40 cards in a deck, and you make that up using these kind of characters, and that's an unlimited character, and each deck does have their own set of unlimited characters. And they're all very unique. So this one doesn't have an effect, but it is quite strong. Yeah, so I can put as many of them as I want to fill a deck. Now, commanders are the thing that makes this game quite unique. And that is, in the top left here, each card has a purity. So this card requires 1 Warpath commander, so Warpath is that deck. This requires 2. And the commanders both bypass the deck limitations and they start semi on the field. I'll explain more about that when I actually show you the game. So yeah, I can put 2 more of these cards in there, and as you can see I've got 3 there and 1 of each commander. So I actually have 5 of those cards in the deck. And then say I want to play some Genesis cards, I can only use one purity Genesis cards, because obviously I can't put a second Genesis commander there because there's only 3 slots. So yeah, that's how creating decks work. And it's really interesting because there is a lot of really cool synergy that actually occurs between multiple decks. Like, you can find random synergy between 2 different factions. And because they're played so differently, it's really interesting when that happens, and it's really, really great. And also, as you can see, some cards are heavily animated. So like this one's just a bit of bobbing. This one's got some arms going, flying. Anyway, onto the game modes. So in this game, there are a lot of different modes. There's the Academy, which teaches you how to play. There is the Campaign. So each deck has their own campaign, and you actually unlock the deck by playing through that campaign. So you can use the deck in ranked mode and all those other modes after you play it in the campaign. And yeah, the campaign takes about 3 hours to complete, I found, and afterwards I had 74 different rewards. Now those rewards ranged from getting a level up to leveling up a deck to just beating a certain campaign mission, and the rewards varied a lot actually. It would be 1 card, 3 cards, 5 cards, a booster pack which is 15 cards, up to the basic deck which is 43 I believe. Okay, so what other modes are there in play? There is pre-made AI, and these are actually surprisingly interesting, and they're great for learning the game. Now they do have these difficulty levels, and these are what I'll be showing you today. There's also constructed, where you play with decks you construct, normal play, or ranked play. And you have a whole bunch of additional options, so there is a lot of different stuff happening in the game, and that's really cool. Then there is draft mode. Now, if you've ever played Hearthstone, for example, you'll probably know what this is, and that's Rift Run. Now, what this is 4 cards will appear, and you pick one. Another 4 appear, you pick one again, and you continue until you have a full deck of 40. So, the interesting thing about that is, it doesn't draw from the cards you own. So, it does create a level playing field for someone who doesn't own as many cards. So, I've played this game for probably 5 hours. I could go up against someone who's played this game for hundreds of hours, and even though in Constructed they might have an advantage over me because they have all these different cards, in this they wouldn't have that advantage, and that's really good that that mode's there because it does even the playing field a little bit, though they will still have that, obviously, game experience over me. Oops, that was the wrong button. Anyway, let's give some of these a go. Now, which deck am I going to use? I'll just use some of the starter decks to show you some of the basics, and I'll use some of the cool decks. Now, I'm going to go this faction called the Sleepers. They're really interesting, and I will verse the Cult of Varor. So, there's a lot of really strange synergy in both of these decks, and it's between their endless cards. So as you can see here, my unlimited character, it's called an Endless Horde, and for every one in the graveyard, every other Endless Horde gets +1/+1. So just to explain the basics of the cards, in the top left you have the Purity, in the top right you have the Resource, so I'll explain the resources in a second. Then below the Resource you have the Morale Cost, which I'll also explain in a second. Then you have the Rarity, the card's attack power, the card's health, and the set that the card is from. So as you can see, there is a good amount of cards in this game. There is a lot. Okay, so just to explain some of these basics. Resources. You start at 1 resource when the game begins, and each turn you'll gain 1 more. So next turn I'll have 2 to spend, turn after I'll have 3, and it doesn't matter how many I spend on this turn, they don't accumulate. So whether I spend 1 or none on this turn, next turn I will have 2 resources to spend, and so on and so forth. So turn after I'll have 3 no matter what I spend. And yeah, then morale. There are 2 ways you can win this game. One is by getting the opponent's health to 0, the other by getting their morale to 0. So for every one of my minions that dies, I lose 2 morale. So yeah, it means that I can't just spam minions and get away with it if they keep dying. Particularly because there are some decks that resurrect their minions continuously, so it would mean that they can't just build an impenetrable wall using that. Okay, so this board, I haven't actually spoken about the board. It may look a bit confusing. What happens is if you play a card, it goes straight to the support zone. Now the support zone isn't really involved in the combat, but you and your opponent can see each other's support zone, so you know what's there. And once something's been in the support zone for a turn, it can be officially played. Now there are effects that let you skip that, like charge, puts you straight in the assault zone, and there is something that puts you straight in the defense zone as well. So the assault and defense zone. Something in my assault zone will attack something in the opponent's defense zone, in order. So my first will attack his first, or then if his first doesn't die, my second will go for his first again. And you'll see what happens with that as we play. But yeah, I can't actually play anything this turn, as you can see this cost. Now, commanders, which I have here on the left, my 3 commanders, they're technically in play. Now, the interesting thing about them is I can play them straight from that command area into a zone, so I can play this into the assault zone, which I'm going to do this turn. And it has an interesting effect, so this tutorial comes up. So this card has Infect, and when it kills a character, that character is raised as an undead in my control, and it has slow, which means it can attack once, then the next turn it has to sit in the support zone and do nothing. So there's a lot of interesting synergy that can be created through the use of your command zone. As you can see, just drawing a card. This, whenever an undead character you control dies, it gains +2/+2. So because it's in my command zone, it's considered on the board. So say this card died, these would both become 4/4s. But if they were in my hand, they wouldn't. So if they're defense, assault, support, or command zone, they would gain that bonus because they're technically in play. Which also means things in the command zone can be eliminated by spells, but not attacked directly. Okay, so I'm going to play an Endless Horde. And as you can see, the opponent's deck has a similar type of synergy, and theirs is when an enemy dies, so when one of my units dies, their unlimited character gains +2/+2, and that can only affect things there, or in their support zone, or well, on their field as well. So let's just have a look at their command zone quickly. Quite often you put unique characters that have abilities in there, so they can pay 4 and deal 6 damage to the target character in the combat zone, which is either assault or defense zone. And then when this card comes into play, draw 2 cards. So that would be there because it's a guaranteed card. You don't need to draw it and then you don't need to have to find it and randomly draw it. It's there. So if you ever need 2 cards, you can pay that 4 cost to put it into play and you will get 2 cards. So yeah, there's multiple little things your command zone does, and it's really interesting. It does add to the game. Okay, so as you can see there, the animations, the attacking animations, are essentially non-existent. Oop, I want him in the assault zone. And I think it's actually okay. It's done well enough, like you know what's happening. And I was thinking about it, if, say, each card that attacked did an animation like it did in other card games, such as Hearthstone, there would be a lot of clutter because I could have unlimited cards, essentially, in this zone. Like, as many as I can play can go in that zone. I'll play 2 more of these bad boys. And, yeah, there they go. Ooh. Okay, so what they actually played this turn, I believe, is a card that changes their location, changes their environment, I think. No, they didn't. They just played a card that changes the aesthetic of their side. And that's really awesome because there is a lot of stuff that does that. And it's really, really cool. Okay, so I mentioned the resources before and I explained them. Now, there are some cards that both increase and decrease your resources. Now, playing this Wealthy Noble means that I have 1 extra resource. So I play that. And this turn it doesn't come into effect, but next turn I'll have 1 extra resource, so I'll go up to 9. But I have this card, so it kills any target character, but decreases my maximum resources by 2 permanently. So next turn I will go down to 8, I think. If I did my math right, I'll go down to 8. So I'm going to play that, kill that card, put another one of these down. See, there's a bit of a trade-off in versing this opponent, and that is that they do have that great synergy where when they kill one of mine they get buffed. So yeah, I can't really just run things in and sacrifice them because they would gain an advantage. However, they haven't really attacked me yet. I imagine they're going to drop a whole heap of stuff and just decimate me. Yep. Okay, there's one thing dead. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of my hordes, so they didn't get buffed, but they did drop some stuff. Alright, so there's one more thing that this game has that other games don't, and that is the trading post. And it has 3 effects. You can shuffle a card from your hand into the deck and draw a card. You can draw a card, or you can increase your base resources by 1 by paying a certain number of resources, as you can see. So I'm not going to do that because I want to play this card, which costs 4. But yeah. Also, just as an example of another really cool effect, if Risen of Iraq, hopefully I pronounced that right, who even knows, is in the graveyard for 3 turns, it returns to play, so it would return back to the support zone. So you know what, I'm going to play all of these and go for the kill, because as they die, the next ones get buffed. So even if he blocks with everything he can, hopefully I'll get through. Okay, he hasn't blocked, so the AI is actually about to lose. Bam, he's 0 health. Hits me for 12, but that's it. And there's a nice little animation for the end. So yeah, there's not a lot of animation when things attack things, but there is that nice little death animation. Now, when you finish games, you get experience and you get this little currency called IP. Now that's the in-game currency, and I believe it's infinity points. So infinity points can be used to purchase things in the store. And since it's a free-to-play game, of course, they do have their own currency, which are called Lightmare points. Now, just as a base, I'm going to be talking about this one just for rough cost, $6.25 for approximately $5 US. And when you buy, you also get infinity points, so you should keep that in mind. Now, if I have a look at the costs of stuff, so a booster pack, which is 15 cards, costs 300 Lightmare points, which is approximately $2.50, sorry, or 5,250 infinity points. Now, as I said earlier, I played this for about 5 hours, and I spent 1,000 trying out that other mode I was talking about earlier. So I've accumulated about 3,800 infinity points. So they're not incredibly quick to get, you could say. You do get them for every game, I believe. You get double for win than you do for losing, and you get them based on how long the game goes for turn-wise. So yeah, that's interesting. Now you've got decks, which are just base decks, so they have minimum 40 cards. They cost $7.50, so that's more than $5, $6 to $7. Now, they also cost 13,000 infinity points, which, as you may have noticed, is a lot. But they do put things on sale, and the sale does change every couple of days. Well, not every couple of days, every few weeks. The United We Stand deck was on sale a couple of days ago, and now it's this one. So it literally goes to half price, and that's not a terrible deal if you are interested in the game. You can also buy avatars, backs for your cards, battlefields, so it'll change what the entire battlefield looks like for you, or maybe your half of the battlefield. And yeah, there's a little featured thing to show you what they recommend you buy. So anyway, let's go back to the game. I'll show you a different group. Show you Genesis Industries, because they are really, really interesting. And I'll verse Flame Dawn, which are the race you start as. And the Flame Dawn really feel like a rush down race. Like you just have so much damage, and your unlimited minion or character has charge, which means it goes straight into the assault zone the turn is played. So I have no turn 1 plays. He played directly from his command zone, so he could play into the assault zone, and he hit me. Now I'm just going to be quiet for the next once in a while. I will leave the cards up so you can see what they do, because this deck is a little bit complicated for a beginner, but yeah. So I'll probably give a brief explanation, but aside from that, I'm going to be quiet so you can hear the in-game sounds, because there are in-game sounds and they are quite cool. Okay, so unfortunately I haven't really got the card I needed. There is one card that this deck does really need, and normally you'd put it in your command zone, but since I'm using the base deck, it doesn't actually have it in there. So yeah, that's a bit annoying. I'm probably going to lose this one. But essentially what it does is it lets me sacrifice any artificial minion and add its stats as well as +1/+1 to another minion. And also, the endless card, or the unlimited character of this deck, raises one other unending drone from the graveyard. So say I have 6 out, I'll pull 6 out of the graveyard if there's 6 in there. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Now, I think I'm probably going to die, so I'm just going to concede. There is a concede function. Oh, actually, sorry, there isn't against the AI. I might restart quickly and see if that gives me that card. Just so I can show you, because this deck is really cool. So yeah, as you can see, he's going for the rushdown again, because that's what that deck is good at. If you can get some AoE clear on the board though, it will really hurt them. And as you can see, those 2 unending drones return from the graveyard because of the 2 I have in my command zone. So that's probably why the base deck has them in the command zone. And he is hitting very hard, wow. So I want to put that out, that out. Play 2 more of them, and I'll put that out. So he'll lose 2 minions out of that. But wow. It's really smashing me, and I haven't got that card again, unfortunately. I will show it to you after the game if I don't get it, just in case. But yeah, a constructed deck may have gone better than this. As you also may have noticed, there is a really just nice weather effect happening. Like, there is the different halves of the board, like he's got these flags, I've got these totem pole kind of things, but then there's just this nice little rain effect, and I think it looks beautiful. I think it looks great. Okay, so I'll play those 2. We'll lose 2 of his minions. That dead. Hit me for 13. And as you can see, my morale is slowly going down because this deck's kind of built around doing that. Okay, what's this one do? Start of each turn it stays, it gets +4/+4. So you know what? I'll play that and just hope that I last a few more turns. Get a big creature out. Oh no, he got another one of them. So yeah, this card game is very, very interesting, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. And something that is really cool is you can move things around. I haven't really had the opportunity to do so yet, but say... just play my turn. Say I can just swap all of these from the defense zone to the assault zone or to the support zone. There are some things that destroy everything in the combat zone. And yeah, you can avoid having them destroyed by moving them into the other zones. So I actually lost there again. Unfortunately, I didn't draw that card I needed, so yeah. But you can fix that problem of needing a card to win by putting it in your command zone. And because it is a card with an ability, it will actually let you play it from the command zone and do its thing. Now, here's that card. So you pay 1, you sacrifice an artificial character on the battlefield, and the target character gains the sacrificed character's power and health, and 1/1. So I would make one of those unending drones from a 2/2 to a 5/5 using the other drone, and then that first drone would bring the other back from the graveyard. So there's really, really cool synergy, and all of the decks have that kind of synergy. Like that one, the Cult of Aurora that buffs each minion +2/+2 when an enemy dies. It has a lot of cards that instantly kill, or a lot of cards that deal 2 AoE damage to everything. And it's really, really great. Now, because of how the combat works, you can move cards, because both turns are played both players play their turns simultaneously, and then it kind of resolves. it does allow for some really interesting mind games, because you can move any card that's on the board from your support, defense, or assault zone to any of the other zones. So you might suddenly move everything from attack to defense, the enemy won't be expecting it, or vice versa. And yeah, it's really, really interesting. It's a really, really good game. It's got nice card effects, it's got some pretty decent sounds. The music in the menu is quite nice. In-game, it's a bit quiet. Like, when you're actually playing a match, it is a bit quiet, and there aren't a lot of sounds. Like, cards don't have these meaty, like, unique sounds to them like they do in some other games. But that's alright, because the game is a lot of fun. And look, it's free to play, I highly recommend it. You should definitely give it a go. Thanks guys, have a good one.